Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Sal here, and today we're going to be looking at this Thursday slate, January 31st, almost already done with January in the NBA today. We're going to break it down like we always do. We're going to go over the injury news early on. We're going to look at Vegas, the pace, defense versus position, and I'm going to look at some early interest target spots at the guard, forward, and center position. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Sal, and welcome. We've been doing some daily fantasy sports in the NFL realm, and over the past 2 weeks, we've been doing the NBA, and the channel just kind of doubled and tripled almost in growth in that time. People getting a lot of value from this, reducing your research time for totally free. This is part of what you would get from a paid subscription, and I'm just trying to give it away for free. But again, this is only a piece to the puzzle in daily fantasy sports. It'll help you figure out what the slate looks like early on instead of an hour before lock, just scrambling and plugging random players into your lineup that look like they've done good recently, because that's a better way of just potentially you should just start a fire in your room and throw it all your money in there, because you're just going to burn your money anyways. You need to have some sort of research and at least an understanding of who's injured, what teams are in the better situations, and what positions and players are in the better situations regarding defense. Again, it's only a beginning, so these early interests that I'll be showing later on, don't just plug and place them, because again, injuries are going to happen. Inevitably, we'll find out better value plays later through the day like we always do. Some of these players are still going to be my interested players as the day goes on. Just they're not some player pool that I'm giving you guys just to use for picks, because where's the value in that? I'd rather teach you how to build your lineups. I think that's just way more actionable for you guys. You can learn how to build the lineups, and then these videos can help you just reduce your research time. So let's get into it. And if at any point during this video that you feel the need, like you've been getting value, or if you're somebody who's a returning subscriber and you know how much I do value you, just drop a comment down below, like the video. It lets us boost up the rankings a little bit. So right now, if you could like this video, trying to get to 200 likes, it'll boost us up the rankings. More people will get to see this content that I'm putting out, try and turn this hobby of mine into a career. And also, if you can subscribe at any point in this, I'm trying to get to 2,500 subscribers by the end of the week. We should have a few thousand people watching this, so if you're not subscribed yet, please do subscribe, or at least wait until I start to give you guys value and then subscribe, right? So we're going to break into this right now. Let's look at it, right? So I always do just start on DraftKings and just quickly look at who the highest price guys are, but then we'll jump into the spreadsheet really quick. So we do have 3 guys in that 10K 6-digit range. We have Giannis on this slate. LeBron's out. He's getting closer to coming back though. Ruled uncertain yesterday and then out immediately after that. So he's definitely says he's feeling better. He's been posting on Instagram, so you know he's been feeling better. Joel Embiid at 10-1. Interesting matchup for him tonight against a guy like Cousins at that night game. It's something I'm going to be keeping an eye on. And then you get Vucevic, so it seems like we got a lot of good guys on this slate. Leonard, Griffin, Durant. So let's jump into the spreadsheet, right? So here we go. These are our injuries for the day. I kind of color-coded it to make it a little nicer. Always trying to improve these sheets for you guys. The screenshot right now, and you have it all for the rest of the day. So just some main things. There's not a lot of key injuries on this slate. We got a lot of early news. We know that Eric Bledsoe and Brogdon are probably probable. We know that Kuzma's a game-time decision. This is probably the biggest news on the slate. We know how much Kuzma being out, his usage affects Brandon Ingram, who had one of his best games, if not his best game of the year, going, I think, 15 of 17 for 30 points in the last time out. That absolutely massive dunk when they played Philadelphia. Excuse me. But if Kuzma's in, he's an absolutely intriguing option, and only $6,900 is price. Definitely not where it should be in the 7K range. Still with no LeBron out there, you kind of have to get what you can get out of these guys while LeBron's out, because LeBron's going to come back and suck up a lot of that usage. So Kuzma's a big one, both for Ingram, both for some of those guys behind him, such as a Josh Hart, who is also questionable, such as a guy like Rondo, who will see some more usage bump, potentially a couple more shots with Kuzma out. Draymond Green, we got news that he's probable, so there's nothing to worry about there, as he sat out the last game due to maintenance issues. Questionable Josh Hart, like we mentioned. So Josh Hart being questionable. And we have our impacted players list here. So this is basically what depth charts say and where the minutes have been going. So Josh Hart being questionable, it's going to affect Beasley again, who only saw 10 minutes, screwed a lot of people's lineups up, I believe, last time out there. And then Lance Stevenson. Reggie Bullock, or Ishmael's out. Reggie Bullock is still questionable. If Reggie Bullock sits again, which last time out he sat, and then they were like, okay, no, you're questionable now, and then he ended up sitting again. If he sits again, I think Reggie Jackson's the guy who's the biggest beneficiary of this. Again, Ish Smith wasn't somebody taking a ton of Reggie Jackson's minutes, a guy who's already seeing like 30 minutes a game, but Bullock's just going to be a guy who had some usage in that offense, in that backcourt. So yeah, it makes sense that if Bullock's out, you're going to see a bump for a guy like Reggie Jackson, but you're also going to see Stanley Johnson come back into the starting rotation, probably at a value price. Jonathan Simmons is out or questionable, so if he's out with that abdominal injury, it's going to affect Ross a little bit. It's going to mainly affect Isaac, who will probably draw the start. Again, these aren't players that excite me and probably that I don't want to end up playing, but if you have to and you get to that point, something to look at. DeMar DeRozan, we know that he's probable, so this is going to cut into LaMarcus Aldridge the most, who sees a 34.2% usage rate with Rosen off the floor. DeRozan off the floor, it's going to cut into Bellinelli not being in the starting lineup. Rudy Gay's potential upside is also going to be cut into as well. Avery Bradley's questionable. This is actually another big one, a sneaky big one. So we know that Lou Williams is going to be that sixth man out there. He gets the high usage, elite usage of over 32%. If Avery Bradley ends up sitting, which I don't know if he is, this doesn't seem like a big deal with this knee, but if he does end up sitting, Lou Williams will probably go into the starting lineup, and a guy with 32% usage rate, maybe that's as big as it is because he's working with the second team, kind of like that lead dog. And if he comes in with a Tobias Harris, with potentially a Harrell, Patrick Beverly, whoever starts next to him, it could maybe hurt that a little bit. But at his price point, again, if he's going to be seeing, no matter what, 30-plus minutes, I think it's good for Lou Williams. It's going to affect him. It's also going to affect Robinson, who should see, maybe like Jerome or whatever his name is, maybe like 12 minutes instead of 7 or 8. Beverly will also be affected a little. Gallinari's still out, seems to be getting close, still going to be affecting Tobias Harris and Harrell, mainly Tobias Harris. Tyreek Evans, he was out yesterday, the second night of a back-to-back. He's questionable. There's really no word if he's questionable. This is just me saying he's going to be questionable with a back injury. It's going to help Holiday. It's going to help McDermott. It's going to help Corey Joseph. Also help Darren Collison to an effect. So this is the sheet right now. I'd say just the biggest things to keep an eye on and be aware of is that Kyle Kuzma is going to be a game-time decision tonight, that DeMar DeRozan is in, and how that affects that lineup. We also have Draymond Green in. That's going to affect that lineup, mainly just Cooney, a little bit Kevon Looney, and a little bit potentially Durant and Cousins in terms of rebounds and just assists. And then Avery Bradley, a sneaky, interesting spot to watch today. Check this mic. We're good to go. So that's injury news. Keep up on it. It's the most important thing. And then just back-to-backs tonight are the Pacers and Dallas, 2 teams on a back-to-back on these 12 teams on the slate, 6-game slate. So let's go to Vegas now. So Vegas early on, I didn't check this morning. Again, I was doing this last night, if this LA Clippers and Lakers game has come out yet. Let's actually check right now. Why don't we? Live action. This isn't live, but this is live for me screen recording this stuff. So let's see if the spread for this Lakers game is out yet. I'm going to guess no, and I'm going to guess the main reason why is Kuzma. So we go to just NBA. So this is just Fantasy Labs Vegas dashboard. It's nice to look at. It's all in one place. Yeah, so there's still no spread out for this game at all, and it's most likely because of a guy like Kuzma, right? He's going to change that spread eventually. He's going to change it probably by a point or two. But if we were to project this based on pace, based on how this game's going to go, it's probably going to be closer to this 230 range, so always keep that in mind. We did have an early line, at least, on this one. So all these games, for the most part, don't have any blowout potential, which you guys know how I feel about blowouts. I don't factor it in. Too many moving pieces to try and predict a blowout there. So yeah, we could look at this quickly. I kind of color-coded it. Anything above 220 over-under. Vegas, if this is your first time watching, is very important. And a lot of people already know that, but Vegas indicates how many points are going to be in a game. They're pretty good at indicating around that range. If there's more points in a game, it's better for your fantasy players in your DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo lineups. So if we're just looking at an over-under, they're projecting this Golden State Philly game for 240.5 right now, right? That's over 30 more points than this Detroit-Dallas game. So there's going to be 30 more points to go around in this game, projecting-wise, right? And Vegas is usually pretty good at getting in that same area. So even if we say just 25 more points, out of those 25 points, there's going to be missed shots for rebounds. There's going to be assists on the 25 points. There's going to be three-pointers for a little bonus. Triple-doubles and double-doubles will be added potentially. So it's hard for me not to highlight this game. It's hard to me not to highlight this game, these bottom 4 games, right, and kind of just exclude these top 2 from what I'm trying to do today. There's going to be some value plays in there. There's going to be some guys at interesting spots in there. But as far as for what I'm trying to do, it's really hard not to want to game stack, play multiple players from the same game. Some of these games, as of right now, early on, again, I did all this research last night as the games were going on. It's 7 a.m. here, 7:50 now, so things can change. But as of right now, it's going to be tough to get away from these high potential scoring games here. We want to look at pace now. So pace, as you guys know, if you've been following me, is just possessions per team. And the more possessions you get in a game, the better, because there's going to be more opportunities to score fantasy points. So pace, this is each team's individual pace for the entire season right here. And then this is me projecting the game pace for their specific matchup. So you see that the Lakers are number 4 overall at 105.7 in the entire league. And you can find the Clippers here at number 9. So 2 top 10 teams going at each other is going to lead to more possessions than an average game would, right? than the 20 and the 21 ranked teams in pace going at each other. There's going to be more possessions generated from this since they both play fast. That's what this equation here takes into account. So what this is saying is that there's going to be around 110 possessions per team in this game right here with the Clippers and the Lakers, and that's why we don't have, if we go back to Vegas, an over-under here. But pace usually leads to, especially when you have good players who have high field goal percentage rates, pace usually leads to a better over-under or a higher over-under. I think it's going to be around, I'd imagine, the 230 range for that game. The Lakers are usually up in that spot, especially when they play teams in the top 10 in pace. We can go to Golden State. They're number 10 overall. The Philadelphia Sixers, they're number 7 in pace. So again, another two top 10 teams going up against each other at 108.2. We saw their 240 over-under, which is going to be right here when I finish out the spreadsheet. These are just good spots to target. They're ideal spots. There's only 6 games on this slate. It makes sense to go after and really condense your player pool to about 4, maybe take 1 or 2 value plays or one guy from another game. But the way I'm going about this slate is seeing the games that have 30 more points potentially to be scored in them, seeing the games that are usually later in the day when we have, if we go back to DraftKings here, yeah, the 2 games that are the latest in the day at 10:30. I'd rather wait, let all my player minutes boost up, see what I have to do, and let these guys take over at that point, right? So that's just where pace is at right now, the possessions per game. Make sure you incorporate it into your analysis, into lineup building. This is target offense. So target offense, again, is just the teams that I didn't put any projected totals in here, but that's fine as of now. So our target offense is just how that specific team defends that specific position over the last 30 days in terms of DraftKings points. So that's what I'm going off of. Some stats will go off of defensive efficiency. Some stats will go over overall team, not just breaking it down. I'm going to go by the position over the last 30 days for DraftKings points. You can break down by FanDuel points. It's going to be pretty similar in terms of relative to the slate. You can see here the Clippers are really bad against the center. Odds are they're going to be really bad against the center on FanDuel just because scoring isn't that much different between the two sites besides a couple bonuses. So I don't really spend too much time on this page because you guys can screenshot it and kind of digest it. What's color coded is basically the top 5 teams against that position in red and the bottom 5, but don't just plug and place or avoid players because of a certain situation. Like the point guard position right here, it's probably going to be Ben Simmons starting. Do you really want to completely fade Ben Simmons in a 240 total game against Golden State, going up against Seth Curry, where he has a size mismatch? Maybe you do, right? Maybe that's a stance you'll take, but it's not a spot to just say, okay, 3, I'm going to fade it completely. It is a spot, though, to be weary of guys, right? And these are spots where you see the third worst in the league, to say, okay, let's look more into the situation. And then you look more into the situation, you see who the players are on the Lakers who potentially have a spot at center. You see who they've been matched up, how this team has been playing recently, going through the center, are they working through it, things like that. Because if this team is ranked 30th against the position, but the team they're facing is really bad at that position, then it's not as bad, right? If the Lakers are the second worst team, get that out of there. If the Lakers are the second worst team through the center position, generating offense for the center, going up against the worst, yeah, it's going to help the Lakers a little, but it's going to be much better for the Clippers compared to if they were playing a team who is one of the worst or one of the best, right, against scoring. So if that made sense, so you got to look more into it than that. So that's all it is. You guys can screenshot this again if you're on a Mac. I think it's like Control-Command-4, whatever it is. So let's go into early interest. We're going to start with the guard position. Again, this incorporates point guards and shooting guards due to the dual eligibility on DraftKings. So again, let me just disclaim this like I always do. These are not picks. This is me teaching you how to build a lineup, and based on what I've done so far, these are early interests. There are some potential biases in here, none that I tried and put in there, but again, throughout the day, I'll use some projection systems. I'll see what the projections look like. Fantasy Labs is the one that I've been using as of late, and then I'll go from there. So Reggie Jackson, a guy, like we said, if Reggie Bullock's out, that I like to play a lot. He's been playing just a ton of minutes all year long, and now he's actually getting usage with those minutes. What you're seeing on the screen is their salary at price on DraftKings, their DraftKings points per minute, usage rate, how many times they touch the ball when they're in the game. They're being used, basically, the defense first position, minutes per game, and points per minute. Value, as of right now, it should be projected points divided by salary divided by 1,000. I'm not projecting points right now. It's something that I've been trying to work on, and in my free time, I'm going to be working on it more later on today. But it's okay to use DraftKings points per minute, but it doesn't incorporate the DraftKings points per minute like what's happening with Ish Smith, what's happening with Reggie Bullock in Detroit, what's happening if we go down here with Napier. He started to come into the lineup, so these points per minute aren't a true reflection. I'll call out some of those things, but for the most part, you can kind of go off of this, and again, it's just some of my early look values. Rondo, he came back. He said two games in that he feels fine. He has the freshest legs that he's had in years. He went in, he played another 30 minutes. Didn't get as much production in there in a points per minute basis. The last time he was out there, I think it was basically a point per minute exactly, somewhere around there. But I do like Rondo tonight. Once again, in this huge pace-up spot against the Clippers, who, if we go target offense, is 18th, middle of the pack, if not a little bit worse. Over the last 30 days on the entire year, they're a little bit worse. If Lou Williams does draw the start, I'd be curious to see who they put Lou Williams on, but again, it doesn't really matter for me. D'Angelo Russell, his usage rate has just been elite. Anytime you see a usage rate in the 30% range, you know that that's elite usage. That's the usage that guys like LeBron, Russell Westbrook are getting. D'Angelo Russell has been getting that since Dinwiddie went out, LeVert out. At $8,400, I think he's a tad too cheap, to be honest with you. For a guy who has to get you 42 to get there and closer to 50 for you to feel good. That's something that he's been doing more frequent than not since these guys have gone down in Brooklyn. Lou Williams, we mentioned. I like Lou Williams either way because, again, you see this insane usage rate when he's on the court, 32%. He leads that second unit. I'd like to actually see him stick with the second unit, but if we do see Avery Bradley out and he comes into the starting lineup, you can't complain there for a guy who's $7,200 with that usage rate. With his minutes saying 26 here on the season, but really moving closer to 30 over the past month of the season. I like Lou Williams a ton. I had him when he had that triple-double and he went off, finished 6th in the big tournament. Again, there's probably some bias here, but I'm trying to control that and say why I do like him. Luka Doncic last night kind of laid a duck for a lot of people. $8,500, I'm fine going right back to the well with him. Again, this usage rate, 29% for a 19-year-old. He shot well yesterday, but not as well. I watched the whole game as he has been shooting. I mean, there was like 5 or 6 threes that he missed that were somewhat wide open. You hit half of those, you have a lot better game. I do like Luka at $8,500. Collison at $6,100. Collison's a guy you continue to burn money on, but I like to buy him at a point of low price and low ownership. This is a guy that a lot of people should jump off of just due to the fact that he hasn't been producing as much as of late. And if Evans is out, I'll buy into him a little bit more. Klay Thompson, $5,800, still gets a good usage rate. Klay Thompson's just a pure shooting guard, though. Maybe he'll get a few assists in there. He can generate his own shot, but he needs to play off the ball. So Steph Curry is magnificent with that. Draymond Green being back into the rotation definitely helps a lot, kicking it out to him. Draymond obviously being a great passer. Klay Thompson, he's going to need to get you 25 plus actual points, scoring points, right? To do anything for you in DraftKings. You need, at $5,800, you need around 30 out of him in a tournament, if not 35, to feel really good. I think he's underpriced at $5,800. I think he should be around $6,000, which, again, he is around $6,000, but I think he's shortly underpriced by $200 to $300. I think he's interesting today in that high-scoring game. As a pivot off of guys like Durant, as a pivot off of guys like Curry, even Cousins, right? Napier at $5,300, he's been playing great. You can see here I have this stuff highlighted, great usage rate. He's been playing close to 30 minutes over these past 4 or 5 games that he's been playing. DK points per minute have been also close to 30 points, so I highlighted those just to mention that. $5,300, I think he's still a value play. Just not sure I want to target that game too much. But it's definitely not a terrible spot to target compared to some of the other ones. Actually, no, wait, what is that over-under? Since we don't have it here, I might be absolutely lying to you guys. Over-under Vegas. Get out of here. Yeah, 227.5. So yeah, I'm not worried targeting that game in the slightest. 227.5 on most slates is the one that you want to go all after. I'm fine having pieces from that game. I'm going all over the place here. White, another reason, yes, DeRozan's back. This is going to cut into White a little bit, but White's been the guy kind of taking over out there. $5,600. Again, he's been playing closer to 30 minutes, scoring closer to 30 points per game over the past week. Most of that's with DeRozan out, so that he gets maybe a little bit of a knock if DeRozan comes back. Gilchrist Alexander, $4,000. He's on here mainly because of value, and he's going to probably see the minutes as long as he continues to start. He's going to see closer to 30 minutes. He's going to see closer to around 20 points per game. Usage rate goes up a little bit. $4,000 is the main reason he's on here. He's sort of like a value play as of right now since we don't have too much information. Jimmy Butler, another guy from this 240-point over-under that I'd like to target. $7,400 last game out. He looked great. Overall, I mean, he's going to still get his usage percentage out there. Let's just add this little percentage mark. And I like him over Ben Simmons. You don't see me having Ben Simmons on here, and the main reason why is Ben Simmons, I think, is still $9,000 on DraftKings. I'd rather take that price discount where Ben Simmons probably has the higher ceiling just because of the position he plays, the point guard position, being able to get a double-double and a triple-double since he's a rebounder as well, compared to Jimmy Butler, who's mainly going to score via the points, via some assists. especially if Simmons is on the court at the same time as him, not going to get as many rebounds or assists. Generate his own shot, not so much. He's going to have to actually generate his own shot, yes, but he'll also get assisted from Simmons instead of the other way around when they're both on the court. So Butler at $1,600, I think he's a better play than Simmons just because of the savings you're going to get and because of the positional matchup. Simmons is going to be going up against Steph. He's going to be going up against Clay probably, so that's just a lot worse of a matchup, but also Butler has that potential to also go up against Clay when they're both on the floor, so we'll see how that matches up. But those are forwards, early interest. There's some other guys that I didn't put on here, or those are guards that were early interest. There's some other guys I didn't put on here. But again, throughout the day, follow me on Twitter. I didn't say that in the beginning. Follow me on Twitter if you're still watching 20 minutes in. Right now, follow me. That's where I put my updates during the day. I'll probably drop that down into header to follow me on Twitter. So, yeah, let's move over to forward position now. So, small forwards and power forwards. We start off with the Lakers guys. So, Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma. I like both of them, right? And I like Brandon Ingram a lot more, and I like the whole situation a lot more in this game if Kuzma sits. Potential blowout risk. If that does happen, I'm not going to weigh it too much. If Kuzma sits, I think Ingram at 7,300 is a smash play. He has to get you 35, 40 for you to feel really good. I think he has that in him. His usage rate is going to bump up closer to that 25 to 28 range. His points per minute bump up a little bit over 1.15-ish. Kuzma, the same reason I like him. If he's in, it's going to damage Ingram a little bit. Kuzma will take way more of that usage away from him, way more of the shots away from him. I like Kuzma a little bit more, especially with the savings. Tobias Harris is a guy I played a couple days ago. A lot of the industry did, and he kind of fell on his face. I like him here again against the Lakers. He has a great matchup with the defense versus position at 28. And he's the superstar out there in LA. He might be the biggest superstar when LeBron's not playing in LA on both teams. So I do like Tobias Harris quite a lot today, as of right now. Wilson Chandler, more of that value play early on, $4,000. There's 18 points per minute. That's taking into the whole season when he wasn't really starting too much when Covington was there. But now that goes up a little bit. His minutes per game have gone up. Has a good matchup as well, $4,000 in this high-paced game. Ways that you can pivot off of the higher-owned guys, which if you're wondering how ownership works and things like that, being contrarian, free PDF down below. If you haven't downloaded it, make sure you download it. Rudy Gay at $5,900. He's going to take a hit, but his ownership's going to probably drop a lot. He has to get you 30 points in a tournament for you to feel okay, probably closer to 35 to 40. I think he has it in him. With DeRozan back, it's going to limit him a little bit, but if that ownership comes down a lot, I might be interested. Blake Griffin. So this is one of those games that you don't want to target because it's not a super high total compared to these other ones, but one of the plays in those types of games that I like is Blake Griffin at $9,300. I think those games are going to go very much under-owned, and if you are going to own a guy from those plays, it should be, one, a super cheap value guy like a Reggie Jackson we talked about who can let you fit in those other big guys from the other games, or play a complete stud who can dominate the entire game. And if there's only going to be 208 points scored, maybe he'll drop 50 of them, right? That's something that Blake Griffin can definitely do, something that he's done this season. Serge Ibaka, this one I'm kind of on the fence about, $6,100. I do like Ibaka. He does have a good matchup, or at least a decent matchup in terms of DraftKings points over the past month. Given up. Ibaka is just a guy who can get in the double-double category pretty easily. Siakam does take a little bit away from Ibaka when they're both on the floor, especially when Leonard's back out there. Ibaka comes down. So I'm on the fence about this one, but I do think it's at least interesting early on. Giannis, probably the best pay-up spot on the slate. Obviously, in rivals with Embiid, who's in a much better situation, I would say, in terms of over-under. But he probably has a worse matchup. Giannis has the better matchup. They don't play the same position. But I think Giannis, in terms of paying up, is the best way to go in terms of hitting your value of getting your 60 points today over Embiid. But that's dangerous. I like both of them. Thad Young, $5,400. His price continues to come down. Second night of a back-to-back, though, so I'd watch out. If he's in the starting lineup, though, I do like him. Just be wary of a tough matchup. Isaac, I put him on here. I hate playing this guy because he's pretty much a terrible point-per-minute guy, as you can see here. 0.77. He needs to play 30 minutes to really do anything for you to feel comfortable, but 4,400, he's worth noting. Durant's a guy I've been shying away from because that whole offense takes just so much value away from each player individually, and it's so hard to pinpoint who's going to do well, and you're better off just sticking with the Klay Thompsons, who are usually underpriced, and if he just gets a decent game, he's going to hit for you, and then he always has that potential to blow up. Durant's a guy who it's hard for him now to touch 60. Yes, he can touch 50 still, obviously the 40s, but at $9,000, he's coming back down to that price range where it's okay to be feeling good about playing him. Look, he's cheaper than Blake Griffin in a spot where there's going to be 30 more points in this game. I do like Durant tonight quite a bit at $9,100. Has to get you 50 to feel really good in the tournament, and I think he can do that. So that's forward. Let's move over now to center, where it's not a deep list, and there's one guy that I have to add now that I think about this. So Harrell, Cousins, Zubac, and Aldridge are the centers I'm early interested in, and I'm going to also add Embiid in there. I didn't put Embiid on this early on, but Embiid's also on this list. We could put JoJo Embiid. Got to have him on this list when the over-under's that high. So Harrell in that spot. Again, that's going to be probably a high total in the 230s. I'm projecting for that Lakers-Clippers game. Fastest paced game on the slate. Harrell's a guy who has one of the best matchups on the slate. If he draws a start at the 5, we have to watch this. If Gortat draws a start at the 5, probably not DraftKings worthy, but if he does see for some reason we see a minutes bump coming, Gortat becomes a very value and sleeper play. But I'm really hoping Harrell draws a start at the 5 because he has a great matchup today in a high-paced game. Cousins, $6,700. I feel like this is going to be the chalk today. I could already feel it. Cousins has been the chalk all year long. He's averaging almost 1.5 points per minute since being back, which is phenomenal. His minutes went up to 25 last game. If they can get closer to 30 at $6,700, he's a smash play. If we don't hear word on that, you can probably bet he's just going to stay between the 24 and 26 range, which at $6,700, if 25 to 40% of the field tonight, if not more, on a 6-game slate, are going to own Cousins, which they should in this high-paced matchup, but he does have a tough matchup. Again, against a guy like Embiid, I'm probably going to be underweight, if not fading that, not completely, but a good amount, because this is the reason why. If 40% of the field's owning Cousins, and even if he smashes, you're still competing with 40% of the field. If he has a decent game, you probably don't need him to win, and you can get somewhere else and find more leverage, meaning you're not owning as high of a owned player. To win it all, you need to have a guy who's sub 5% owned, ideally sub 3% owned. A couple nights ago, I had Lou Williams during that triple-double, like we mentioned, 1% owned in the main tournament. You're just going to move up so many more people when you have that and nobody else does. Cousins, does he really have 60-point upside tonight? No. You don't need that at $6,700. You probably need, if he's going to be 25 to 45% owned, you probably need 40-plus points from him, something he hasn't been able to do yet, not because of his fault, just because of the minutes restriction. Great player, but again, if the usage is there, I'm going to be a little bit, or if the ownership is high on this and the minutes aren't going to come up, obviously the usage is there at 28%, but I'm going to probably come a little bit off of this. And also, it's a small sample size. I can't see him sticking at 30% usage rate with guys like Curry, with guys like Durant in that lineup. It just doesn't make sense to me. We're not even seeing that out of Durant. So playing through Cousins seems like a different way that the Warriors would have been playing instead of playing through Durant, Curry, Clay. So I don't think they're just going to change their whole offense. I think this is more of a 4-game small sample. The first game was like feed Cousins, he's back. And since then, it's just been kind of the way it's worked out. So Cousins I do like, but if ownership's going to be high on him, I might come off of it, although it's an ideal matchup, ideal spot for him. And if the minutes come up, he's almost a lock for me. That's really the big difference. Zubac at $5,100. You could also put JaVale McGee in here. Depends who starts for me. If Zubac's going to start, I like him. They have the best matchup on the slate against a Gortat, against a Harrell, whoever it might be, against the Clippers. I do like that spot. Aldridge, he does take a big boost, a big bump with DeRozan coming back in. Still has a great spot against the Nets. You've been targeting the Nets all year because you get so many offensive and defensive rebounds. This is a spot where Aldridge can potentially go for a 20-20 game. He has that in him. Joel Embiid, again, a high-priced guy to go after on this slate. Again, playing in this 240 over-under. Can he get to 60 points in this game? I think so. He will be higher owned than a guy like Giannis. At least I could say that as of right now. It's going to be interesting. So, yeah, that's the centers, right? Quick 5, I do like Harrell. I do like Aldridge. Cousins I like, depending on ownership. And I do like Embiid. It's going to be interesting to see how people, if we go back to Vegas, split up these games, because there are a lot of high over-under games. I think Indiana and Orlando is a game that I'm going to completely fade. I think Dallas and Detroit is potentially a game that I'm going to completely fade because of that over-under. It makes a really good spot to play a guy like Luka. The over-under is not great, but Luka can get in the box score in triple-double like we've seen in many different ways. A lot of people were Luka failed a lot of people last night. Back-to-back on a double-double doesn't really affect rookies or younger players. This is a good spot there. Luka could be low-owned at 8,500 and throw up another 60-point game. You can get Luka at sub-5% ownership. Maybe not on a 6-game slate, but definitely sub-10% based on what else we have in these other categories. 229.5, 227.5, 240.5, and probably around, I'd say, 233.5. Those are definitely insane totals to go after. So it seems like it's going to be a fun slate today. I'll close this off by leaving it on the injuries. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's like 7:30, 8 a.m. I got to go to the doctor's, going to upload this video. If you made it all the way through the 29 minutes, thank you so much. Let me know in the comments down below. I want to thank you personally. I appreciate it so much, guys. If you also made it this far, go ahead and check out Draft Dashboard. I'm not going to give them a full ad here because I just remembered it, but you can just reduce your research time. I've been doing it to reduce my research time, build some lineups in there, see ownership projections when they come out later on in the day. Appreciate it, guys. My name's Sal. Best of luck today.